IVM.
Welcome to episode 73 of the Edges Sledges Cricket Podcast. I'm your host this week, Ashwin, joining you from Cincinnati in the US. And with me is DJ, who's in London this week. And England, of course, has been the epicenter of an absolutely incredible week of cricket. But before that, I wanted to start by just sharing some fantastic news we have on the Edges Sledges Cricket Podcast. And we tweeted this out, so some of you have heard this already. But we are super, super excited to have just heard that we are now rated the #1 cricket podcast in India on Apple Podcasts. And I think we're #1 in a few different countries as well. But obviously, being an Indian cricket podcast, we wanted to make sure we celebrated that. So a huge, huge, huge thank you to every single one of you, all our listeners that have been listening since day one. Or if you're a new listener, welcome to the show and thank you for tuning in. But we're just incredibly excited. It really keeps us going to know that you guys are out there listening, and we love hearing from you and getting feedback, etc., as always. So thank you again, DJ, on that happy note of us being #1 in the Indian cricket podcast scene. How are you doing and how are you feeling this week?
I'm very well, Ashwin. Thank you. And it's been such a week of cricket. I mean, I don't even know where we're going to start. It's been exciting. It's been thrilling. It's been tense, nervous. I mean, and it's been, above all, I think it's just raised the bar so high. I don't know. I mean, well, I'll let you start the topics off, but I'm just too excited.
Yeah, let's jump in. In fact, I wanted to say it's not just been an exciting week of cricket. It's been a pretty exciting week overall in the world of sport, right? I mean, at least again, for those of us who follow Indian sport, PV Sindhu just won the gold in the Badminton World Championships. I'm personally a big tennis fan. I know you are as well. You're going to be live at the US Open in a couple of weeks, but Sumit Nagpal is playing the first round of the US Open men's singles against Roger Federer. He's playing it tonight at local time, but obviously by the time this episode releases, that result will be done. I'm not sure how many people expect him to win, but still pretty incredible to have a young Indian male play in the men's singles of the US Open. So he had a thrilling qualification. But of course, we are not a racket sports podcast. Like you said, we're here for cricket. 3 absolutely big matches kicked off or, sort of continued the first month ever of the World Test Championship. So we'll talk a little bit about the result and the World Test Championship points on the board. We usually say we are an Indian cricket podcast, but we cannot start this week's show without talking about the Ashes. So the 3rd test of the Ashes just wrapped up. I'm not even going to bother trying to summarize what happened because if you listen to the show, you probably watched or followed it. But, when we left you off last time, Steve Smith had just come back on to bat for the second time in the same day. That test obviously ended with the first ever use of the new like-for-like concussion substitute. It feels like so long ago that happened, but we had a quick turnaround. We had the 3rd test just wrapped up in Leeds at Headingley. DJ, let's start by asking you, you posted a picture or a video of this, but you're supposed to be playing cricket on Sundays, right? Were you actually playing cricket yesterday or were you watching, or how did it feel in England?
Yes, it was incredible. So people who haven't actually checked out the tweet, go onto our Twitter and have a look. But what happened was we had a game that started at about 1:30, and the first innings, we managed to bowl the opposition out for not very many, luckily 120 or so. And as it is usually...
That's 120 is still better than 67.
Almost double, right? So, I mean, decent effort from the opposition. It was quite a tricky pitch. But as it is, you have a tea break in these games. And the tea break is about, 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes at most. And you eat some cakes, have some biscuit sandwiches, have a cup of tea or a lemonade or something. And you go back out to play. What happened was England needed... By the time we started our tea break, they needed about 51 to get with Stokes batting. And we'd been getting kind of periodic updates when batsmen were coming out or umpires were coming out, just kind of telling us what the score was and what England was doing. And England didn't look like they were doing very well at one stage. They lost some wickets. Bairstow got out. Butler got out. And I mean, by the time the tea break started, it was 50 to get. And we basically just sat there and watched it all the way to the end. And it was absolutely incredible. The atmosphere in that room was brilliant. The tension, you could cut it with a knife. There was all sorts of advice being thrown at Ben Stokes, Jack Leach. And I mean, the shots that Stokes unleashed, I'm sure we're going to talk about that. But I mean, that experience is going to live on in my memory for a really long time. It was just fantastic. Obviously, our innings were slightly less exciting. We managed to chase the runs pretty easily. So that was good news for us.
So batting second means, for anybody who's been following, we said you have the curse of the 140s. You didn't make it to 140 this time, obviously, if you were only chasing 120.
I actually didn't get a bat, so I
That's a
batted
little
at
bit.
5. They chased it with the 2 wickets down. So I'd bowled before
Batted
Stokes.
at 5. That sounds like somebody we're going to talk a lot about on this show, right? Mr. Ben Stokes himself. So, all right. Hey, let's talk a little about the lead up to the last day. We're talking about the day 5 already, but Australia batted first in this match, made 179. I think the highlight for us was Jofra Archer picked up 6 wickets. Absolutely incredible spell of quick bowling. DJ, let me ask you a question. As a quick bowling all-rounder yourself, how do you feel about, there's a lot of discussion about Jofra bowling, consistently bowling bouncers, targeting the batsman's head. There's some people who say, hey, are we going back to the kind of age of body line, etc.? There's a lot of others, myself included, who say, hey, this is legal. So it's one thing for the ICC to change the rules and say you can no longer target the batsman's head off of a bounce, obviously. But what are your thoughts on that? And I mean, you play a lot of club cricket. What is it like in the club cricket scene? Have you seen more bowlers showing up trying to bowl bouncers at the helmet since Jofra has emerged in the last little bit?
It's very interesting. So just to clarify for our listeners, when Ashwin says I'm a quick bowling all-rounder, I'm nowhere as close to Jofra Archer. I'm probably 90 kilometers per hour, where Jofra is 90 miles per hour. So that's the difference.
I think the last time I played against you, I would have been like 13 or 14 years old, so it felt as fast as Jofra.
But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question, isn't it? Because he bowled consistently short at Lords. He hit Marcus Labuschagne or Labuschagne, whichever way you want to pronounce his surname, in the face on the second ball, almost sending the like-for-like concussion substitute into a concussion himself. And it was incredible how he kind of sprang back like a boxer. That was a great look for Marcus. But I think it's... is it Manus? His name is Manus, isn't it? It's not Marcus. Marcus North. I'm confusing him with
Marcus North, Marcus Harris.
That's right. It's Manus Labuschagne or Labuschagne. Anyway, well, moving on. So I think Jofra it's scary. I think the problem is bowlers have always bowled bouncers, and it's a legal thing to do. Nobody likes seeing batsmen get hit, but they've got plenty of protection now. They can play the hook shot. They can play the pull shot. And it makes the game exciting, seeing a quick bowler run in and bowl short and batsmen take him on or sway out of the way. It takes skill. And I think the thing with Jofra is that we haven't seen pace like him for many, many years. I think we've seen quick bowlers. We've seen people like Bumrah who pitch it up, who are really good at Yorkers. We've seen people like Dale Steyn who swing it away at pace. But the intimidation that has come with Jofra, I think we haven't seen that for many years. I don't think there's a trickle-down effect at club level, and I don't think there will be, because firstly, I think you need to be quite strong to bowl a bouncer. I don't think I've bowled a bouncer for the last 15 years myself. So I think it's not going to trickle down to club level, but I think it's going to stay in the game. There was a phase in the game after Phil Hughes' unfortunate demise that people were like, should this be outlawed and stuff? I think it's part of the game, and it's not going to go away. We've controlled it with the number of fielders behind the batsman on the leg side because of the bodyline series and all the injuries. We've controlled it through the West Indian greats, who I think put 42 people in hospital with concussions and various broken bones. So I don't think it's going away. I think it's come into prominence. And the question with Jofra was actually why he didn't go and check on Smith. And I think it was okay. I mean, There was somebody who said actually that one of the ex-Australian captains maybe, who said that if a bowler hit a batsman, I sent the bowler away because I didn't want his bowling to get affected. So everybody else checked up on Smith immediately after. Jofra went back to his mark, and I think that's fair.
It's really not easy to bowl a bouncer, right? Jofra almost makes it look so easy, but I think you really summarized that well. So Australia made 179. England walks out to bat, and just as they've done so many times in the last, call it 2 years, and I was looking this up, they made 58 all-out against New Zealand last year in 2018. They made 77 all-out against West Indies. They were 85 all-out against Ireland just earlier this summer. And so, of course, you can see where I'm going with this. England ended up on 67 all-out, the highest score being 12 by Joe Denley, the only player to get into double digits. Great spell by Hazelwood to pick up 5 wickets. The rest of it, basically Warner found form, Labuschagne, whatever you want to call him, had another great second innings. And then we come to England's second innings, 359 to get. I started looking this up. On paper, for those who don't watch test match cricket that much, okay, time's not an issue. 359, okay, it's high, but it doesn't sound impossible. But it's only ever been done 9 times before this. and both openers perished pretty quickly. We're sitting in the 6th over at 15 for 2, and Joe Root and Joe Denley are standing out there and starting to build a partnership. DJ, at this point, at 15 for 2, Root in pretty terrible form, and Denley just being the ugly-looking cricketer he is, did you think there was any hope at all?
To be completely honest with you, after 67 all out and 15 for 2, and the ball that Jason Roy got, right, from, I think it was Hazelwood, just beautiful, incredible ball. And I mean, just to put it further in context, the press and the media here went absolutely ballistic after the 67. It was all about how nobody cares about Test cricket anymore. You concentrate on white ball cricket. That's what you get. Keep getting bowled out for less than 100. What is this? I mean, Test cricket has lost its primacy. And Ben Stokes came in for a lot of criticism for his shot that he played, which was he got caught behind chasing a wide one. And I mean, the media was really on the English captain's back. Joe Root getting out for, I think it was successive ducks as well. So when he came into bat in the second innings, under a lot of pressure, Joe Denley playing for his career as well, and Joe Root probably playing for his captaincy, given that if England lost this game, they would have lost the Ashes, right? So incredible pressure, and at that stage, things didn't look good. I for one thought, barring a miracle, which has happened previously in Headingley in 81, which they keep showing in the breaks between these sessions, the Ashes were gone.
Yeah, so it looked like if it was going to happen anywhere, it would be Headingley. So I think they went off on the third day at 3 down. So still feeling pretty optimistic, Root still batting. And then, of course, magic happened. Ben Stokes, and again, I want to reference a message we got on Twitter from @B Rajadurai, Ben Rajadurai, saying, can you please talk about how Ben Stokes is literally Jesus in the next podcast? And I think that was very appropriate because remember, this is the guy who basically played the World Cup final winning knock for them, not without some controversy, not without some ups and downs, but he got them over the line, and he walks out he would have come in at 141 for 3, batted with Joe Root for about 18-20 more runs, and then Root gets out. Bairstow stuck around for a little bit, and then Bairstow got out, and slowly you start seeing people on the other end perish. He got Joss Butler himself run out. I mean, pretty bad call, but you know, it is what it is. Butler got out. Wokes, who you expected to stick around, got out. Archer hit a couple of good boundaries of Lyon. Should have had the patience to stick it out and make it through the over and just get Stokes back on strike. Didn't make it. And then, of course, as we know now, he managed to get them over the line in partnership with Leach, who's a off spinner who generally is not known for his batting. He made 92 against Ireland earlier this summer, but Ben Stokes, what an absolutely magnificent performance. He made 2 runs off his first 66 balls, just with the omission of staying there and not getting out, and then ended with 135 off 219. So we'll dissect the end of that innings in a little bit. But DJ, is this the greatest 4th innings test match knock ever?
Yeah, great question, man. I mean, 4th innings knocks, it's the ones that come to mind, right? I mean, Brian Lara's 153 against Australia. Of course, Kushal Perera, 153 versus South Africa earlier this year, which Sri Lanka won by 1 wicket against all odds. There was the Mohali knock by VVS Lakshman, the one that you remember with Ojha getting screamed at and Ishant Sharma actually hanging around with him and getting us across the line. So yeah, Australia seems to have had their fair share of 4th innings knocks played against them. But I think this ranks probably, given the context in which it was played, given the 67 all out, given the history of Ben Stokes, last year, I mean, he was an outcast. He was a complete pariah. He was being booed on the ground for having hit somebody. And there was that incident outside the nightclub. And he was also the person who lost them the World T20, ostensibly getting hit for 4 sixes by Carlos, remember the name Brathwaite. I mean, he was not having a good time of it. And for him to have done that 6 weeks after playing probably what he thought was the knock of his life in the World Cup, to have the mental strength to pull out another, once in a lifetime innings within 6 weeks of playing that knock in the World Cup final, after having put in a stint in bowling. Remember, he's bowled, I think, 24 overs. And that ball to Travis Head was incredible. He didn't believe England had lost this match at any stage. And I mean, I think there have been some great knocks, but I think we're looking at, and I hate to say this, given that I've actually previously gone on record probably saying that I don't like Ben Stokes as a cricketer, but this is the summer of redemption, man. This is summer of redemption. Steve Smith and Ben Stokes. I mean, Ben Stokes is probably going to be one of the, if not the greatest all-rounder to have ever played the game.
Yeah, I think you summarized it really, really well. So thanks for that. Really well said. I want to talk a little bit about how he paced his innings. So I mentioned this, but he was on 2 of 66 balls and ended his innings on 135 of 219 with 8 sixes and 11 fours. So I don't know if you were watching this, but from my perspective, it was absolutely just incredible watching this guy who, like you said, is an all-rounder, so sort of known for both his batting and his bowling. And, honestly, he's not necessarily seen as one of the smartest batsmen in the world. He can hit big, he can hit T20 and ODI knocks, but I don't know if he's ever, the reputation of necessarily being a, quote, smart batsman has followed him. But he was just on song. I think he did an incredible job of, as the 7th, 8th, and then eventually 9th wickets fell, he continued accelerating. He went for those boundaries in the first 2 to 3 balls of the over, went for a single in the 4th or 5th. He did an amazing job, by the way, of after hitting a boundary, when the field, early in the over, the field went back and he picked his gap and picked up 2s. And so there was just something magical about watching him keep the scoreboard ticking while obviously preserving his wicket, which was the most critical thing. And then if you were watching this live, when it got down to 2 runs needed, that's when on the last ball of the over, there was an LBW shout. And because of the chaos, it was given not out. Because of the chaos, they didn't take a single, and Jack Leach had to face out an entire over. But let's come to the LBW shout really quickly. DJ, have you seen that? Did you watch any of the videos, or have you seen the replay and read any of the discussion?
So is this the Nathan Lyon LBW with 2 runs to get?
This is yeah, so let's just back up a little. The prior over, Jack Leach was batting.
Exactly.
There was an over. Hazelwood was bowling over the wicket.
Cummins.
Oh, sorry, it was Cummins. Cummins was bowling over the wicket to a lefty. So anybody who knows anything about Test cricket or cricket will tell you a pace bowler bowling over the wicket to a lefty is an incredibly unlikely LBW. But it happened to the naked eye. It pitched way outside leg stump, probably hit way outside leg stump, may have gone on to hit the stumps, but should have been not out. And Tim Payne, I think partly in frustration, partly in just hope, he reviewed it and wasted or used up the last review Australia had. So DJ, take us on from there. Then Nathan Lyon came in and bowled an over to Stokes and or bowled the last ball of the over to Stokes. What happened?
Yeah, so I also remember that DRS review that was actually taken. You could see Patrick Cummins actually shaking his head and saying it's not out. He did not want to take it.
I mean, they knew, right? He walked back right away. All the bowlers and fielders walked back to their position. Nobody thought it was out.
And Payne still went for it, probably thinking it was his last throw of the dice. May as well try it. It was a marginal call in his head, right? He was just like 50-50, or maybe, I don't know, whatever. He was just hoping against hope that somehow it had pitched on the stumps. And if it's not going to swing back into the left-hander, if it's not outswing from over the wicket, it's not going to be out. It's almost impossible for the stumps to be hit from that angle if it's not an outswinger from the right-hand bowler to a left-hand batsman. And so they used up that review, the last of their reviews, they burned it. And then Nathan Lyon gets the job of bowling to Stokes. And the first thing that happens in that over is actually Stokes hits it for 6. And then you've got 3 runs to get, and he reverse sweeps one to Point. And Point picks up the ball, throws it to Nathan Lyon. Jack Leach is almost shaking hands with Ben Stokes at that stage. It's that comedic horror, tragic comedy from 1999 playing out all over again. Except, again, it's Australia in the field. But unlike, who was it? Who was the guy? Damien Fleming, who just rolled it to Gilchrist. Nathan Lyon actually fails to collect the ball. And with Jack Leach halfway down the pitch, bottles the run out. And I mean, that was the moment that that was the moment that Australia had the Ashes, right? Anyway.
Well, just to be clear on that, they needed 2 runs to win. And a win or a loss, which means a win for Australia, would have had them retain the Ashes. Even 1 would have ended in a tie, which means England had a fighting chance. So this would have literally been 1 run. To lose by a run on 1 run. So anyway.
Correct. So Stokes actually doesn't go for it because he's still backing himself to get the 2 runs to win the match. Lyon bottles the run out and the ball just drops, and like the Australians can't believe that they've done that. Credit to Lyon, he picks himself up, bowls one the next ball, which pitches kind of middle, is spinning a little bit. Stokes goes for the sweep, misses it, and it looks pretty out. But guess who's the umpire? It's our friend Joel Wilson. And in the moment of pressure, Joel Wilson does not give it out. Remember, England has a review up its sleeve at this stage. So if he'd given it out and it wasn't out, England could have reviewed that. Stokes had a review up his sleeve, whereas Australia did not have a review up their sleeve. So that is the crucial point. And at that stage, if Joel Wilson had given it out, Australia would have won the Ashes again. England could have reviewed it, but when we saw DRS, right? It was 3 reds. And I mean, it was over. That was the game. And again, Australia had the Ashes. So people will argue that, yeah, well, the umpires robbed Australia. Well, they used up their DRS review earlier. Anyway, long story short, Jack Leach knocks a single off his hips the next ball. Ben Stokes crashes it through the offside and all hell just breaks loose. I mean, incredible scenes at Headingley. The crowd, which was full at 11 a.m. on day 4, a full capacity crowd, came in expecting a miracle, and Ben Stokes did not fail them. He delivered that miracle at Headingley.
Incredible. Well said. Miracle at Headingley happens again. I want to dispute one thing before we talk about the last Ashes topic. And I completely disagree that looked out to the naked eye, the LBW. I was watching it. And again, maybe at that point, I just wanted the miracle to happen. So maybe there's a little bit of bias, much as I usually don't like England. But to the naked eye, to me, it was most certainly not out. It looked like it was angling away, maybe pitched on leg and started angling down. It did not look like it didn't have to spin back. There are some theories online saying DRS, quote unquote, got it wrong because it didn't correctly detect the touch on the front pad. And the deviation in the ball was not caused by the spin, it was caused by contact on the front pad. Anyway, we can debate this till the cows come home.
Interesting, actually, because Stokes actually said that he didn't think it was out. He was like, he doesn't know.
He said it too, and we can repost it, but there's some people on Twitter who've slowed down the video and have posted it, and it's really interesting to see. The point is, for me, it certainly wasn't a howler. Joel Wilson has had a horrendous summer. He's had a lot of howlers. To me, this certainly wasn't a howler. It may have been the wrong decision, which happens, and that's what we have DRS for, and Payne should have used it better. But by no means was this a really, really poor decision.
Yeah, and it was awesome because I was playing with the Kiwi, and then the guy was just like, so anything that England's won this year has been either delivered by the umpires or a Kiwi-born all-rounder. It's pretty funny.
That's pretty much it, right? And Jimmy Neesham himself said, he tweeted a pretty funny line that's saying, it's a great summer to be a Kiwi-born all-rounder. That's not me. So anyway, lots of good discussion happening. The last thing I want to talk, DJ, before we take a quick break. Ben Stokes could have batted for as long as he wanted. He could have hit as many runs as he wanted, but none of it would have mattered if the 10th wicket had fallen on the other end. So just how clutch was that 1-run contribution that Jack Leach made out of the last 73 runs. I mean, to walk out with 73 left to go and only 1 wicket in hand. Jack Leach, this guy has had a crazy tumultuous career. He fractured his skull in 2015. His action was initially ruled out because of, or it was called out as being suspect. Made his way back, made 92 against Ireland. And I mean, there was just something beautiful about the moment where every time he had to face a ball, he stopped, put his bat down, took both the gloves off, took the helmet off, wiped the glasses, made sure they were nice and clean, put the glasses back on, got fully dressed again, and then batted out that last ball of the over. But just how clutch was Jack Leach's innings for you?
Well, he scored 1 run in the 1 hour that he was out there, faced 17 balls. And I mean, Stokes couldn't have done it without him, right? He needs someone at the other end. Lakshman had Ojha. Lara, I think, had Courtney Walsh. And Jack Leach is Ben Stokes' man. And I mean, it was almost endearing with all that pressure that this guy's like cleaning his glasses, right? I mean, we don't see those many cricketers wearing glasses anymore. I think Santner is one of the other modern cricketers who wear glasses, and Daniel Vittori was the last one before him. So it was quite old school. It was something very test cricket about it, that Jack Leach comes out and like his glasses are steaming up on this hot day in Headingley with all the pressure going on around him. I thought it was very, very, it was a nice moment. It was a nice moment, but well played to Jack. Well played to him.
It was fantastic. And there's a great interview with him on Cricket.info where he talks about how he's been getting so much praise, and it may be because he looks like the everyman. He looks like the club cricketer. He's bald. He's got glasses. It was just a fabulous moment. You mentioned lots of names. I want to make sure we recognize Vishwa Fernando also for being Kusal Pereira's partner in crime to help them get over the line.
Absolutely. Taking all those blows on his body as well, right? Like incredible.
6 runs in over an hour he made, but it helped his team over the line. So it's been...
and to answer your question earlier a little bit, maybe, I don't know, 153 by Kushal and 135 by Ben Stokes. It's tough, man. It's tough to analyze those innings and pick one out of those. I mean, Sri Lanka was so unfancied in that series, and for Kushal Pereira to pull that off one-handed, incredible. But for Stokes to do it in that pressure cooker of a situation as well, with a lot on the line, I don't know, tough to pick. So I don't know.
Let's just not pick then and appreciate both of them for what they are, and say we're incredibly fortunate to be experiencing Test cricket like this. For anybody who said it wasn't doing well, Test cricket is alive and kicking and back with a bang. So on that happy note, we're going to get to the India-West Indies test, which is the first of which is wrapped up. But we'll take a quick break and be right back after this.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another awesome week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you are not following us on social media, please make sure you do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And also, just a reminder, if you like what you're listening to, take a screenshot of what you're listening to and tag us on social media, and we will repost your post. Also, please do tell a friend if you're enjoying a podcast which you think a friend would enjoy. Do tell them. I think that is something that really helps us. I think that we do see, increases in listenerships when you guys do that. So please do tell friends that you are enjoying what podcast you're listening to. Last week, we launched a new show called Agla Station Adulthood with best friends Ritasha Rathod and Ayushi Amin. They talk about their journey into adulthood. On the first episode, they discuss crushes and female friendships. And on this week's episode, they try to crack the code on how to adult. You can also catch Ritasha and Ayushi on This Week Cyrus Says, where they talk to Cyrus about the podcast, what constitutes acting like a grown-up, and Ritasha gives Cyrus detailed instructions to reach Mud Island. Know Your Kanun with Amber Rana is back with a new season. On the first episode of Season 2, Amber is joined by model Hasleen Kaur and actor Laura Mishra to talk about civic issues. On the Empowering series, host Zarina Poonawala is joined by investment banker Neetu El Singhani, who shares her experience of being a single mother. On 9XM Soundcast, host Eva Bhatt is joined by Aditi Singh Sharma. Aditi shares interesting stories about her childhood in Russia and Dehradun and singing for a rock band in Delhi. This week on Golgappa, Tripti Kamkar is joined by Priya Bapat, an actor par excellence who shares some incredible stories about self-love and prioritizing oneself. This week on the Pragati Podcast, Sandesh Anand joins Pawan Srinath to talk about cybersecurity. On Advertising is Dead, Varun is joined by CEO and co-founder of Terribly Tiny Tales, Anuj Gosalia. They discuss the emergence of short-form content. On The Habit Coach, Ashwin Doctor talks about acupressure, acupuncture techniques, and their benefits. On Pulyabazi, Pranay and Saurabh discuss the political history, present, and future of Balochistan with former RAW officer Tilak Devashar. This week on Paperback, Satyajit and Racheta talk to Sanchita Lohot about books that bring forth an individual's hardships. And with that, let's get you on with your show.
Welcome back to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. We absolutely love talking about the Ashes. We could do it all day. It was a fantastic test. There are 2 tests to go, but we're an Indian cricket podcast. We were excited I mentioned last week, I was thrilled to see India back in whites, and it did not disappoint. So India took on West Indies in the first test match at Antigua. Not a great start to the match. India was 25 for 3 on the first morning, but proceeded to have a pretty strong first innings, pretty great second innings, and then win the match overall with a fine bowling performance by our seamers at the end. DJ, let's talk a little bit about the playing 11 that got selected. So there's 3 things that we kind of talked about before the test that I want to chat. 1, Rohit didn't get selected. I imagine you're pretty happy about that. 2, Ashwin didn't get selected. I think that's a little more controversial. And then 3, Pant got selected over Saha. I think that one you're not so happy about. But let's quickly chat about each of those 3 things. So Rohit, do you think it was the right call, obviously?
I absolutely think it was. I think it's rewarding performance in the red ball format, right? And Vihari's been performing with the India A side. He's performed for India when he's played for them. Even the 7 or 8 runs he scored, I think, when he opened the batting in Melbourne, key. And it's temperament. And there's some players that you can see have the temperament for Test cricket. And I'm glad he proved me right, actually. And we'll talk about that later in the show, of course, with the runs that he got in both innings.
So let's try I think totally fair, completely echo that. I mean, I feel for Rohit, he had a great white ball season, but I do think, it looks like at that number 6 slot, there's a little bit more certainty coming in with Vihari. But let's talk about the spinner. Ravindra Jadeja got selected as the first choice and only spinner in the side. How do you feel about that? Some data to back that up says Ashwin is one of the most successful bowlers in the number of innings he's played across all of India's history and maybe even some of the history of bowlers across the world. So how do you feel about leaving him out?
I think that was a really tough call because we exchanged 11s before the game as well. And Ashwin was, he walks into my Indian Test 11, right? He's our number one spinner and he's been our number one spinner for many a year. He's got a great record in the West Indies. He's got, I think, the maximum number of Man of the Series awards. And I think the last time we were out there, he won the Man of the Series award as well. He bowls really well to left-handers, and the West Indian top order is full of left-handers, attacking left-handers that he's very, very good against. He is a very good batsman. I think he got 100 the last time we were out in the West Indies as well. I think what's worked against him, and maybe it's not the right criteria for selection, is his fitness on the last 2 away tours we've had. Broke down in England, crucial, didn't win us the test in Southampton with an injury. And played the first test in Adelaide, did well in Australia, and then didn't play the rest of the series. So I think that's what's actually counted against him in the final analysis. I don't know what you think about the selection, because he's a world-class player, right? And people like Gavaskar were completely flabbergasted by it.
Yeah, I'm pretty disappointed. I think there's a little bit of the white ball issues that are leaking over to the test team. But if they picked Jadeja for his batting to come in and bat at 8, I think... Yeah, the challenge with having Ishant, Shami and Bumrah is you basically have 3 number 11s. Now, Ishant did pretty well in this test, but on paper, if you want a stronger number 8, Jadeja is probably a slightly better batsman than Ashwin. But I think for me, to your point that you made earlier, Ashwin's a world-class bowler. And, if you're picking your number 8 because of slightly better batting, then you're just doing it wrong. You don't have enough faith in your top 7 batsmen. So I think... To me, Ashwin slides on the side, not to discredit what Jadeja did, either with the bat or the ball. In a side, on a pitch where there's 2 spinners, he immediately walks into the side, but really tough call. I just worry it's a little bit more than fitness or things you said. I think it's the politics. I don't think he gets along quite as well with Shastri and Kohli, but anything to add to that, DJ?
Yeah, I think one of the things to just remember is that Ashwin, it's how you see Ashwin, or the spinner's role, to be more precise. Is Jadeja playing an attacking role, or is he playing a containing role for the fast bowlers to take the wickets? And if Kohli just wants to keep one end tight with Ashwin, just running through the overs and keeping his over rate up and attacking from the other end with the fast bowlers, maybe that's why Ashwin didn't play, because Ashwin might attack more and might leak more runs. That is the only kind of strategic reason I can think of for not playing Ashwin. Jadeja did very well, of course, and he's done well of late in Test cricket. He did well in the Oval Test. He played the last Test in Melbourne as well. And he did well in this series, as you said, not to discredit what he's done. But maybe one of the justifications the team management will give, and I don't know whether we are attributing too much intelligence or reading too much into it, is maybe it's the role of the spinner and how they see them performing.
Yeah, I think that's super insightful, actually. And we've seen Ashwin bowl matches where he's been aggressive, but we've also seen matches him bowl incredibly defensively. And so I think that's really interesting to think about. Hopefully we see, with the long domestic season ahead of us, I think from September all the way through to Feb, March, India plays at home and there's lots of Test cricket. So hopefully Ashwin and Jadeja both play. I don't know where that leaves Kuldeep, but anyway, we'll cover that as we get closer to it. And then we talked a little bit about Pant over Saha. I think Varun and I both predicted Pant would play. He had a reasonable outing in his first innings, made 24 odd, got out to an unfortunately very ugly looking shot, as he tends to in the second innings. But I want to come and talk about our vice captain, the man Ajinkya Rahane. He has struggled. Many called it his comeback test. Many actually before the series called for him not to be selected at all. I don't think he made everybody's playing 11. But he spent time in England. He's been working on his test game. And he walks in at 25 for 3, consolidates beautifully with Vihari and then Pant and then Jadeja, and manages to get 81 in the first innings, getting out to a pretty good ball. And he, played really well in the second innings too, and got us over the line with a magnificent century. Perished at 102, but by the time he crossed his century, we were ready to declare anyway, so he went for some shots near the end. But DJ, are you happy for Ajinkya Rahane? It's hard not to feel good for this guy, right?
Love the guy. He's for the fan, he's like the nicest guy of Indian cricket. The successor, the sole successor to Rahul Dravid, right? Like the nice guys of Indian cricket. And you could see how much it meant to him, that 100. He just went down on his haunches, just took a moment to take it in. And there was a long hug with Vihari at the other end. And it meant a lot to Rahane. I think it had been a number of tests. He got, I think, 39 tests. He got 900s, and then he waited 17 test matches to get this 100. So absolutely brilliant innings in the second innings. And the first innings, walking in at 25 for 3, he played some very nice shots. His technique looked in good order. It looks like the county stint has actually helped him organize his mind. Like Ashwin, he's only playing one format of the game. So it's tough to get your rhythm, I think, like playing only one format. And really, really happy for Rahane. It's such a pivotal position at number 5. And you could see that Kohli was happy for him as well from the dressing room. You could see the joy on his face as well, to say that this is the guy I've backed. This is the guy who's my vice captain. He's my second in command. I'm backing him. He's going to do the job for us. And some cracking shots, some really nice shots against spin, some brilliant drives through extra cover. Rahane really coming back to his best, not confused by the one-day game and the demands of the limited over variety of cricket.
Yeah, so that was a great summary. Thanks, DJ. Before we talk more about the last couple of things I want to talk is Vihari and then Bumrah. We got a tweet this week, and since we've talked about Ashwin and Rahane, I'm going to mention it. So Arindam Saha tweeted us saying, so, point to ponder, with Delhi Capitals looking to bring in Rahane and Ashwin in trades, are you guys taking a page out of RCB 2008 and getting all the test specialists? So just quickly as context, what we're starting to hear some rumors about is both Rahane from the Rajasthan Royals and Ashwin from Punjab are being looked at for trades by their respective franchises. And apparently, all rumor mills, Delhi is interested in both of them. So, DJ, what are your thoughts? Let's start with Rahane, since we just talked about him. Do you think Delhi's actually interested in him? And if so, should they be?
I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know where he'd fit into that lineup, right? We've already got that kind of steady player at the top with Shikhar Dhawan. So I'm not sure that there's actually a spot for him to be playing at. So
yeah, this is the struggle I have, is Varun and I talk about this a lot, but your next few years of I mean, Shaw's not playing consistently in India, but you have Dhawan, Iyer, who had a great limited over season, and of course, so you have 3 guys who are playing for your country in the top 5. Shaw. Gill. Maybe I want Gill to be playing for Delhi that bad, but Shaw is going to round out that lineup. Once his ban is done, he's probably going to play for the country. So you have such a solid Indian batting contingent. I agree. I don't know where Rahane fits in. But let's see how that goes, and especially if they trade someone for him, I hope it's not somebody good. We have already let go of Sherfane Rutherford this season in a trade that Delhi made for Mayank Markande to beef up the leg spin. But let's talk about Ashwin. Do you think Ashwin can fit into the Delhi Capitals line, both from a kind of leadership and a strategy standpoint, but also as an off-spinner?
I actually like the idea of Ashwin and the Delhi Capitals, because the track in Delhi is actually something that spins, and it's a slow kind of turning track. Ashwin's, I mean, I think he's an asset in the T20 game. No matter, you might say that his fielding's a bit weak and his batting isn't great, but he's also got a mind that's constantly ticking, and someone like Shreyas would actually benefit from him on the field, I think, because Shikhar isn't. I don't know how much he's involved with the strategy. Shaw is obviously captained at the lower level, so he's going to have some ideas, but he's quite young and he may not input that much on the field. Rishabh Pant, I think, just keeps to himself behind the stumps and occasionally comes up with some funny chatter. So I think Ashwin would actually help Iyer on the field. Obviously, they've got Dada off the field and Ponting as well, right? So I like the idea of Ashwin at the Delhi Capitals. I think we'd welcome him.
Interesting. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think Amit Mishra is coming to the end of his career. I don't even know if he'll still play, but I've said that for the last 5 years now. But he's got to be coming to the end of his career. So a frontline seamer.
Well, haven't we got Markande now? Didn't we trade for Markande?
Yes, we traded Sherfane Rutherford for Markande, but I don't know if Markande is your kind of lead frontline spinner. He needs somebody a little more senior to help him through. And that could be a quick. I mean, he did pretty well with Bumrah and Malinga on his side, but I do think you need one more senior spinner to help Markande or get the best out of Markande. So, anyway, enough of Delhi. We'll talk about that plenty as we get closer to the auction or whatever mini auction will happen this year. But let's go back to the India West Indies test, wrap up my final 2 things I want to talk. The first is Hanuma Vihari. So we talked it really briefly, but how DJ, I don't know if you watched it, but I don't think the scorecard does it justice. He made 32 in the first innings, and he made 93 in the second innings. It was a little bit heartbreaking to see him not get to the century because Kohli let them stay out there long enough for him to get the century prior to declaring. He fell short, but honestly, he looks so good out there. He just looks like he belongs. He bats beautifully against spin, and I'm just so happy to see us have a number 6 that looks so stable. So how are you feeling about Vihari?
Absolutely love Vihari as a batsman, but it only becomes tricky when Hardik Pandya comes back into the test side, right? And we want to play 4 bowlers and a all-rounder. So quite tricky. And I mean, he bowls off spin, useful. You saw him bowling some off spin as well in this game. Looks like an organized batsman. He looks like he's got the temperament for test cricket. He gets the tempo of the game, right? Like in the first innings, he knew that we needed to consolidate. So he played a slower innings. And in the second innings, he batted it, I thought was probably the most fluent, maybe apart from Rahane. His batting was beautiful. His driving was perfect. Some of those shots against spin were just lovely to watch. And it was disappointing, I have to say, for him to get strangled down the leg side like that. 7 runs short of a maiden test 100. I mean, he looks like a player that we need to invest in. He's got a great backstory. His mum has really backed him when his father passed away at a young age. And I mean, it's so good to see all that hard work coming to fruition at that level. It's just a great story.
Yeah, I absolutely couldn't agree more. Let's quickly come to the final innings. So West Indies comes out to bat needing 419. So same day as, of course, England has chased a record-breaking 359 and everything we talked in the first half of the show. They come out to bat needing 419. But the story went a little differently. Within the first 7-8 overs, there were 15 for 5. And, of course, the day ended up wrapping up with them getting 100 all out. So 100 was pretty respectable after they were 50 for 9. Kemar Roach came out and hit a few sixes, had some fun with it. But I want to talk about these figures. 8 overs, 3 maidens, 5 wickets for 7 runs. And I'm, of course, talking about Jaspreet Bumrah. I think I shared a stat with you guys yesterday saying he's now the first Asian bowler to have taken 5 furs in South Africa, England, Australia, and the West Indies. And he's, 11 or 12 tests old? DJ, did you get a chance to watch his spell on the final day of the test match?
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible because we finished our game yesterday, which was Sunday. And we were sitting down for a few beers and I said, okay, the England test match is over. So let me put on, there were some other Indians around the table. So I said, let me put on the test match. And India just started to bowl, right? And I have to say, there's nothing better than watching those stumps fly. And Jaspreet Bumrah, I mean, you know what's happened, right? He's gone off for 2 months. He's been rested for 2 months. But clearly he hasn't been just lying around on his sofa watching television and eating chips. He has been working on an outswinger. And with that outswinger, he is absolutely lethal. We saw it for the first time, I think, last year in England. Keaton Jennings left one and was LBW in probably one of the most ugliest dismissals of the summer. But we saw it absolutely perfected in that second innings. It was just the most fantastic display of quick bowling. Stumps were flying everywhere. It wasn't only left-handers that the ball was curving back into and stumps going flying. It was also right-handers who were missing the ball. It was not right-handers that were normal players. It was Shea Hope, who lost his off stump, and Jason Holder, the number 1 test all-rounder in the world, who lost his off stump as well, with away swinging deliveries. That spell of bowling, we just watched it in absolute awe. It was fantastic. Ishant at the other end, credit to him, took 5 wickets in the first innings while the West Indies were looking threatening and carried on the good work in the second innings. Also bowled really nicely. But Bumrah was on a different level. And his celebration just said it. He's just like, this is it. This is me. He just kind of shrugged and said, what are you going to do? It makes a 90s cricket fan just like goosebump everywhere watching Bumrah bowl. I've said it before and I stand by it. Just what a bowler that guy is.
Absolutely. Well said. I couldn't add anything to that. Just an absolutely brilliant spell of bowling. I've watched it twice. I'm going to go home tonight and watch it one more time. So really, really exciting and just incredible to have quick bowlers like this. So amazing to have Jaspreet Bumrah. Great spell. Great, well backed up by Shami and Ishant. That brings us to a wrap of our official kind of formal section. We were going to end this week's episode talking a little bit more fun we're having. So DJ, as you know, I tweeted earlier this week from a sponsorship standpoint, we've all seen in the IPL the Seat Tire strategic timeout. Over the years, we've had Yes Bank maximum and DLF maximums and all this other stuff. Eventually, the DRS will have a sponsor. And so we were looking for some interesting answers on, hey, when the DRS eventually gets a sponsor, who should it be? And we committed online. We said our best and funniest answers will be read out on the show. So we got some incredible answers. We got a lot more answers than I thought we would. But I want to read out two that I thought were pretty funny. The first one came from Yashwant. And he says, looks like he's called for a Pepsi Yehi Hai Right Choice Baby review. And I thought that was great because it was a great throwback to when we were teenagers and Pepsi had the tagline Yehi Hai Right Choice Baby. Really funny, really took me back. So thanks for that one, Yashwant. And then we had two similar ones. One came in from Arnab, one came in from Major Gowan on Twitter. Arnab said, looks like he's called for a lens cart review, obviously referencing the glasses company, and Major Gowan said should have gone to Specsavers. So really good. We got a couple that are not as family friendly that I'm not going to read out, but if you're interested, go check us out at One Tip One Hand. You'll see them on the Twitter feed, but I'm not reading them on the show.
Specsavers is actually sponsoring the Ashes, by the way, with Joel Wilson standing. The best sponsorship ever, man.
It's pretty funny and a little bit ironic, so we enjoy that while it happens. But anyway, guys, that wraps up this week's show. Lots going on in the world of sport. India kicks off our second test match against the West Indies in Jamaica on the 30th of August. That's a Friday. And lots happening. The US Open. So keep watching all the sports out there. Keep sending us messages. Engage with us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We are at One Tip One Hand. That's the number one TIP, number one hand. A huge thanks again to all of you guys for listening and tuning in and reviewing, etc. So that got us to, a place where we are now number one rated in the Indian Cricket Podcast sphere. So we really, really appreciate that. And we will be back next week on a Wednesday, actually, because the match kicks off on Friday, ends Tuesday. So we're going to be a little bit delayed. So we get to talk to you about the second test match that India played against West Indies. So bye for now, and we will see you next Wednesday.
Hello everyone, welcome to Tech Careers in the New podcast series presented by Accenture. I'm your host, Shiladitya Mukhopadhyay. In this podcast series, we'll get you the latest and greatest in the world of technology that's shaping the future of business as we know it. We're talking intelligent platforms, cloud, AI, blockchain, extended reality, and a whole lot more. Every fortnight on Wednesdays, we'll have for you a hot topic with expert speakers from Accenture talking about top trends in the space, how these are changing the world and creating growth across industries. And importantly, we'll tell you how you can learn more, build your skills and expertise to grow and stay relevant in your career. Episodes out on the IVM Podcast app or wherever you get your podcast from.
Do you wish you were smarter? Well, so do we. But the next best thing?
We could make you sound smarter.
And to help you with this endeavor, we are Simplified, a podcast that attempts to break down the complex world around you with a little knowledge, a lot of poor jokes, and a ton of random trivia.
Episodes out every Monday
On the IVM Podcast app or wherever you get your podcasts.
See ya!